Okay, I'm gonna try it again. For some reason, it was saying I was having a bad connection, and I can't believe that since I'm only like 2 feet from the router, even though I am doing it wireless. Okay, this is a special Bigfoot UFO bedtime story for my really good friend John. I'm not going to say his last name, but I want everybody to know, John's going through a battle right now, and I've been praying for him. He's like really close to my heart, and he's a really good dude, and he's really going through a really rough time. And he messaged me and was telling me, do a story, where you beat up the Hells Angels in a bar fight, just make something up, just give me anything, So, I was like, oh man, I'm going to do a special one just for my good friend John. And I'm going to make a good one too. Hi, you guys. I didn't expect to be on, but you know what? I do special requests, okay? Like, if you can't sleep and I'm awake and I catch your message, I'll give you a Bigfoot. I'll give you a bedtime story, and I won't make it up, I won't be in a Hell's Angels fight in a bar where I beat people up. But yeah, pray for John. He's going through a real battle right now, and he can really, if he wants to get on chat and tell people. It says I have a very bad connection. Am I like breaking up on you guys or anything? I can't believe that. It must be like everybody's on their computers tonight or something. I don't know what it is at my house. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a Bigfoot UFO story that happened. This actually really happened in it was like around the time that Mount St. Helens blew up. Me and my wife were living in Oregon, and I was painting for a lumber company. I was a union painter, and I went up there looking for work just to get out of the Central Valley and do something different, And we lived in Ashland, Oregon. We had friends and family over in Klamath Falls, and they invited us to go on a deer hunt. So we went over for the weekend. It was like a 3-day weekend. Man, I hope it doesn't keep doing that. It's telling me it's doing that, like buffering. It says very bad connection. I can't believe it because this phone is only on the Wi-Fi, and it must be like my wife's watching Roku, my mom's watching Roku, my nephew is out there on his phone, so I that shouldn't make any difference. I'm only like 2 feet from the router. Well, we went to Oregon. They invited us to a deer hunt, and then we stayed. We got there like a day early, and we stayed in the little cabin at, where they were all living in by Klamath Falls, just outside of Klamath Falls in the woods. And we were going to go deer hunting in the Cascades right above Klamath Lake. Okay, just out, like on the other side of Klamath Falls from where we were. We were more closer to the California border, staying the night. And so the night before that we were going to go deer hunting, we decided, let's go to dinner, It was like 13 miles to Klamath Falls, and I think I only been on like 4 minutes, it says. So I'm just barely getting into my story, so everything's good. So we decided we're going to all pile in the car and go in Klamath Falls, and Klamath Falls from like where we were, it kind of goes up a hill, you know what I mean? Like as we're going into Klamath Falls was like had a little hill going up, so you could see a lot of the town, you know what I mean, because it had that little rise going up like that. And we were noticing that now the person driving was, you know, listening to talk radio, and I was in the back seat with the other gentleman, and the women were in the front seat. And I was noticing, you know, as I looked at Klamath Falls, whole sections of town where the power would go out. And as we were driving in there, we would see, like, all of a sudden, you know, the power would come back on, and then another section of town would go out, right? And then all of a sudden there was like, you know, I know this sounds like cheesy. There's a breaking news story, you know, on the AM radio, and people are citing a UFO over Klamath Falls, and they're saying that, you know, that this is causing the power outage, you know, the power to go out over the city in different sections. You know, and we thought that was pretty funny, and we were laughing and everything, and so we get into town, and we pick this really nice restaurant, and we go inside, and the guy that's waiting on us, you know, as we're sitting there looking at the menus, all of a sudden the power goes out, right? And he comes along with these big matches, you know, and he lights candles on every table, and it was out long enough for him to light all the candles. And we're like looking at the menu through the candlelight, and then the power comes back on, and he comes and takes our order, and then he goes around and he blows all the candles out. And about the time he blows out the last candle, the power goes out, you know. So he goes around and he's lighting all the candles and everything, and we're laughing at him, you know. And, you know, so about the time he lights the last candle, the power comes on, you know, and he's like, oh, yay, you know, the power came on, and he blows the candle out that he just lit, and he goes around the room, and he's blowing out the candles again, and as soon as he gets to the last candle, the power goes out, you know. It's like, ah, man, everybody in the whole place is rolling, you know, and he's just standing there holding this candle, and he goes around, and he lights all the candles, and when he gets to the last candle, the power comes on, and you could see the look on his face, like, this is a really bad joke, you know. And he's like, he announces to everyone, just leave the candles going, right? Just leave them on, you know. we're just cracking up on this guy, right? Well, that was actually the start of a really weird weekend, okay? A really weird one. We had a really nice steak dinner, and the power went out a couple of more times, you know, in the restaurant. And on the way back, we tuned into the radio, and we were listening to, you know, the reports of this UFO flying around Klamath Falls, you know. It was like pretty cool. And the next morning, we loaded up our rifles and our camping gear, and we were doing everything, you know, and we headed out to. And we had this Volkswagen. It was like a Baja, so it would go anywhere, you know. And we took it up above Klamath Falls into the Cascade Range, and we're gonna do some deer hunting. And we get up there, and we get there about probably around noon, and unpack everything. We set all our tents up, and then I decide I see turkey tracks all over the place, and I tell everybody, I whip out a shotgun, you know, and I tell everybody, we're gonna have turkey tonight, you know. And I never turkey hunted, though, never. I you know, where I hunt, there's no turkeys. I would have to go lower into the foothills to find turkeys. I've done other birds, but I never hunted turkeys before, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But there was turkey tracks everywhere, so I pretty much figured, you know, I'm going to get a turkey. And man, I hunted for probably 3 hours, and it was starting to get dark, and I figured, you know, it's too late to get a turkey now. And I went back to the camp, and they're like, so where's the turkey at, man? you know, I'm like, I don't know, we're just gonna have turkey track stew because I can't find any turkeys. And the guy goes, well, I could see 3 right now. You know, I look at him, you know, loud. What? What do you mean you can see 3 turkeys right now? You know, he goes, actually, you know, if you look around, I think I could see more than that, you know. So I'm like looking around, I don't see a turkey. You know, that guy's a turkey. That's what I go, knock it off, turkey. You know, he says, no, really. He says, look up there. You know, and I look up, and way up in the pine trees, there's these turkeys sitting up there. And they must have, like, when I started moving around into the woods, they probably got up there. That's their roost, and they got up in the trees. I never looked up. I always thought turkeys stayed on the ground. I didn't know they flew. You know, man, what an idiot, huh? So the joke was on me. We probably laughed for several hours. People kept bringing that up, you know, the turkey track stew and the great turkey hunter and all this stuff, you know. I felt like an idiot, you know, but it was funny. I even laughed at myself, you know. So then it was time for bed, and how we set the tents up, we set them up. And now this is a heavily wooded area. We're kind of on the top of the ridge, but it's all forest. And there's the biggest clearing area is right where we put the tents. Yeah, I don't know what's up with the internet, man. It's like screwing with me, you know. I'm about to go shut everybody off. No, I won't do that. You know, I'll just deal with it. So we climb into our tent. There's 3 tents in a row. We set them up side by side, and our tent is in the center. And everybody goes to bed and go to sleep. And a little while later, I don't know what time it was. It was still dark. You know, I wake up and and my wife's just snoozing away next to me, you know, and I'm laying there looking, thinking how beautiful the sky is, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, oh, did it drop all the way off? Like, is it coming back? It's like messing up really hardcore. I don't know what it is. Huh. Would you guys get mad at me if it picked back up? Huh. Oh well. I'm just gonna keep on going and hope for the best. Maybe when my wife comes in to check on me, I know she will, I'll tell her, like, pause your movie, you know, please. Yes. So, you know, I'm laying there looking at the sky, and it's kind of like misting and, you know, getting me a little bit wet on the face, and it was like all of a sudden, you know, it was like, wait a minute, you know, I went to sleep in a tent. I went to sleep in a tent. I shouldn't have, you know, like, missed. I shouldn't be able to see the stars. You know, I was starting to, like, fully wake up, and I'm really starting to trip out that, you know, that I'm, you know, and I wake my wife up. I'm like, hey, you know, wake up. We gotta go. You know, everything's getting wet. The sleeping bags are getting wet. All our gear is getting wet, you know, and we went in the tent that the people that we went with. And we, you know, I woke them up and I told them our tent is missing. And they're like, what? I go, yeah, you know, make room here. You know, we dragged all our gear in and set it down in there and made room for our sleeping bags, and we went to sleep again. I mean, really, like, right to sleep. Kind of weird, you know. You'd think after something like that, you'd lay there for a little while thinking about what just happened, why you would wake up. You went to bed in a tent and you wake up and there's no tent. The floor of the tent was there, but the tent was missing. And you would think you would lay there for a little while thinking about that, but I went right to sleep, just like nothing. Woke up in the morning, you know, 4 or 5 in the morning, just as the sun was coming up. And we made a plan that me and this guy, we're gonna head over to this, like about halfway where, from where we were on the top of the ridge. So we're gonna go down the ridge a little ways, and then when we had a tree stand about 20 feet up in the tree, and it was like half in between the top of the ridge and the bottom of the ridge. And then the rest of the guys that went with us, they're going to give us about an hour to get to the tree stand and get up in there, and then they're going to push the deer. They're going to spread out on the hill, and they're going to walk towards the tree stand, and they're going to push the deer to us. And the plan was we're going to do that, going back and forth, pushing the deer back and forth every day until everyone got a deer. Well, some deer ran by, but none of them were legal. And when it got around 10 or 11 in the morning, we figured they had already. We didn't see them, but we kind of made like a time that once they reached a certain time that they had already passed by us. So then we could get out of the tree stand and go back, and we could go have breakfast. Like 10:30, 11, something like that. So, we climb out of the tree stand and we get back over to the camp, and when the lady that was with us, or the girl that was with us, she says, when we get there, she's like throwing everything in the car. And me and her husband sit down and we're like, hey, what, and now I hadn't seen a Bigfoot yet, or a UFO, I had heard some stories while I was up there, but I hadn't really seen anything yet, and I wasn't really, I was into making fun of people, really, and fighting. That was my days still. I was like, hell on wheels, whatever you want to call it. And, we're making fun of her, and it's his wife, so he started it. So, we've been making fun of her ever since we got there, and we kind of did that on a regular basis, because it was so easy to get her riled up. And finally, she's like, she's not gonna give us any breakfast. She's leaving right now. And we decide, okay, what happened? Why do we have to leave? And she goes, you won't believe it if I told you, and like, try us, we might believe it. And she said that, a little while after everyone had left the camp, and her and one other, I think my wife were the only ones there, she had to go potty, and she went down the hill a little bit and got in these bushes, where nobody could see her, and she, was going to go potty. And she said she got her pants to her ankles and, got in the position to go potty. And when she looked up, as soon as she looked up, there's this Bigfoot standing like 6 feet away from her, just looking at her. And she said they were just staring at each other, frozen. She couldn't scream. She couldn't go potty. She said she was totally frozen. And the Bigfoot didn't move, didn't growl, didn't blink, didn't anything. And they just kind of like were staring at each other for, she doesn't know how long, a few moments. And then it took like 3 steps back, and it disappeared. Like, it just like melted into the woods, 3 steps back. And she said it would have been, really a trip, because even after it disappeared, she was still kind of frozen, like in shock. But once she came to her senses, she decided it was time to leave, and that's when she was just throwing stuff in the car. No packing or anything, no putting it in there the right way. She was just throwing it in there. And that got us going, man. We laughed. We were making fun of her. A Bigfoot, And now it was my turn to make fun of somebody, that like, now it isn't turkey track stew. something else. So we were having a good time, and then all of a sudden, this other guy, one of the other guys that went with us, that was pushing the deer to us, he got back to camp, and he didn't say a word to anybody, you know. And he had this four-wheel drive pickup truck with a camper shell on it. I think it was a diesel too, like a Dodge, and he had two little boys with him, and they wanted to stay. And he was like, we're leaving, you know, and he's just throwing stuff in his truck, just throwing it, just like how this other person is, you know. They're just throwing things in, no packing or anything. He was just throwing. And you know, we're like, my buddy's like, hey, what's up? You know, he says, we're leaving, man. We're not staying another minute up here. And he's like, why? Did you see a Bigfoot? And we both laugh, you know, ha. Did you see a Bigfoot? Yeah, ha ha. You know, and he's like, real funny, real funny. He goes, no, I didn't see a Bigfoot, you know. And then, you know, shut us up. We're like, what? You didn't see a Bigfoot? We're like, so why are you leaving? You know, we didn't tell him what happened to the other person. And as he's like loading up, he stops for a second, and he's dead serious, you know, and he looks straight at us, and he said that he was one of the guys that was on the higher side of the ridge and walked along just off the ridge, you know, and was pushing. He said when he got to where he knew he was past the deer stand, he went on up to the top of the ridge, and all you had to do was walk maybe 50 yards, and you could see on the other side of the ridge, you could see Klamath Lake. And he said he was standing there, you know, looking at the lake, and it was beautiful. You know, it was like intermittent sunshine clouds kind of thing, you know. And he said that as he was standing there, he didn't hear it, but a UFO came down right in front of him, and he said it was following the tops of the trees, and it was going down the hill towards the lake. And he was watching it, and he said everything was fine, you know, it was like going down. He said it got about halfway down, and then it stopped for a minute, and they were standing there looking at it, and all of a sudden it didn't turn or anything, but it started coming back up towards him. And he said it went right over his head, like no higher than 50 or 60 feet over his head. And it came back at him, and he said he got this distinct impression that it was coming for him. And he beat feet, you know. He hightailed it, and he was afraid it was still after him. And he got his kids crying by how much he was pushing them. They didn't understand, you know. They're like little boys, 5 and 7, I think. And they were like really distraught, you know, and mostly because they wanted to stay, and the dad was being all really crazy, you know. So, you know, with everybody leaving, you know, the other people that came back, there was 2 other guys hunting, and they came back, you know, and everybody's leaving. We all decided we're all leaving, you know, and it was just too weird to stay there. And then, you know, like after that, now this is like 1980, 81, somewhere in there, you know what I mean? Like, it was a long time ago. That gives you an idea of how long that I've been researching Bigfoot. You know, and I hear a lot of these Bigfoot people, you know, like I had my encounter just only, I would say I had my encounter like 7 years after that, like 1987. So I've been, after that, you know, after that incident where I woke up where there was no tent over me, that bothered me for a long time, you know. And I didn't know if a Bigfoot did it, did a UFO do it, what took our tent? Because, you know, when I first got up, I went looking for the tent. You know, and the other guys, they rationalized that it blew it off. You know, the wind blew it off. Only there was no wind. There was no wind that night. There was no wind that morning. There was still no wind when we were hunting. I mean, there was no wind. Not enough to rip the tent off of the floor, because the floor was still there. The whole entire tent, poles, ropes, everything else was gone. You know, the fly, and it should have been in the trees all, you know, around there. Somewhere there should have been a piece of tent, you know, somewhere. You know what I mean? Like the ropes, it should have been tangled up in a tree. There's nowhere for it to go unless it flew straight up and then away. And that always bothered me. And because I was up there, you know, living in that area, even though I hadn't seen a Bigfoot, I heard stories like when Mount St. Helens blew. One of my good friends up there was they call them hot shots, and he worked in the lumber industry, but in the summertime he worked for the forestry department as a hot shot, and he would like parachute and stuff into fire areas and fight fires. Well, when Mount St. Helens blew up, they called him up to do search and rescue, and it was like maybe a couple of days that, you know, after it blew up, that we were getting ashed. We got like 5 inches of ash where we were, and we were maybe southeast of Mount St. Helens, not real lot east, but mostly south. You know, and by a long ways too. Like that was southern Washington, and we were in southern Oregon, so I would say like 400 something miles away. And the forestry called them up to do search and rescue, and mostly they were looking for dead bodies. You know, that's what he told me that they called him to do, was look for dead bodies. And he said when he got there to the staging area that they, you know, told him to show up at, the military stopped him. And he said that they had it all cordoned off, and he could see probably about 60 yards away there was a big military helicopter, and there was like a pile of, like, he thought bears on this big net. It looked like they had been clearing animals, you know, dead animals or something out. And they told him that he couldn't go over there yet. He was supposed to report where the helicopter is. That's where the headquarters and all, you know, where their staging headquarters are. And he said that as he was standing there talking to the MP that was, you know, keeping him at where he was, he said that, you know, the helicopter was just sitting there going, vroom, 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 vroom. All of a sudden, you know, it started powering up. And when it took off, it raised up, you know, took off, and then it turned, and it started coming back towards him and rising up over him. And he said, like, maybe 15 feet above his head, that net went right over him, and, you know, like only like 10 feet above his head. And he said there was hands and feet sticking out of the net, and they were human-like hands and feet, but it wasn't bears or anything. So that freaked him out, because he, you know, then me and him, we started going and hiking around Mount Ashland and some other places around in the northern part of California, Eureka or Yreka. You know, I can't remember. It was a long time ago, man. A lot of beers, you know, at the same time as that. So my memory isn't as good, you know, about, like, I remember really good things, you know, like, but when you're out just running around looking for Bigfoot, and then you know, you have a few beers that night. But we really didn't find anything. That the main point is we didn't really find anything, but we were looking and talking to people, and getting stories about it. And over in that area, the people don't talk about it. They know, they have stories and stuff, but they don't necessarily like open up, and they also, like, if you don't believe in UFOs and orbs and some of the more woo-woo or supernatural aspect of Bigfoots, then they don't want to talk to you, And they didn't. And back then, it was more like somebody's going to make fun of you, kind of like how we did to the girl, And we shouldn't have did that. But I mean, I wouldn't never do that now. I make fun of myself more than anything. But so nowadays, okay, here it is, 30 something years later, and I'm hanging out with people that maybe have been Bigfooting 10 years or 15 years, and maybe seriously 5 years or 7 years. I don't know very many people that actually, that has put the time in that I have researching. Like, I started researching the Native American thing, and because of my ties with the tribes and everything, I had more access to that. So I learned about the whistling and the cannibalism and all that, so, and that's coming from the tribal side of it, that they're cannibals, right? And I believe there's, like, in fairy tales and stuff like that, I believe there's truths in it, or myths or whatever. When there's a myth, there is a truth. Otherwise, it wouldn't scare them enough to stay in the house. You know what I mean? Like, when the natives say, or the First Nation people, when they say, don't go out, you kids don't go outside because the hairy man or the whistler or whatever is out there, the sticky mon or whatever, however they say it. I mean, there's a lot of different names for it. When they say that, yeah, stealing women and children, exactly that. See, and I was hearing that from it's not from I read it in a book or anything like that. Yeah, I know, it's going off and on, cutting in and out. It has to be because so many people are on there. And then it's ATT, I think I'm going to have to get Comcast or something with more bandwidth. That's kind of like messed up. Maybe I wasn't supposed to come on, but only it's a special for John. I'm doing this specially for John. But anyways, back to, I'm getting it from tribal elders and stuff like that, talking with them, and going way, 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 way back. So that now, what kind of gets me now is, I know a lot of people that are researching Bigfoot and stuff like that, and some of them get all butthurt about things, about what people are doing or what people think about it or whatever, and it's like, chill. Really, we should be sharing everything that we know and where we go. If one of them gets shot, one of them gets shot. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't like they're like ninjas. They're forest ninjas. They can be right next to you and you don't know it. For all the stories I heard from First Nation is they're dangerous. There is some that will help you, but only there's not a lot of those. You know what I mean? Most of them are territorial. They're hungry. They are the